The very first time that I started to notice that I was being visited was when I just gotten out of the Army. Actually, I just got off of active duty. From the reserves, I got called up to go to Desert Storm. And so I was home. I was living in my apartment complex with my girlfriend at the time in Colorado Springs on the first level apartment of the apartment complex. And I was awoken one night. It was really odd. My girlfriend got up to go to the bathroom, and normally she gets up and goes in the bathroom and turns on the light and wakes me up. And I'm a left side sleeper, so the way that the room was oriented is that I was on the far side of the room on my left side looking towards the wall where the bathroom is. Now, at the head of our bed was where the door was to come into the room. It was also the other side is the living room. And in the living room was a friend that we had from out of town staying with us, and she was staying on the couch. And we all went to bed early because it was the middle of the week and work week and so on. And I'd been working in a carpentry shop at a spray unit, and my girlfriend and I worked at the same place. And we were to bed, and in the middle of the night we were woken up by a woman in the courtyard screaming. Now, being on the first level apartment, there is like a light right there in the courtyard, and it's shone through the windows that were to my right side, and it cast a light onto the left side of the wall where the bathroom door was, like Venetian blinds, so it was like lit with all these lines. And so I was laying there and I heard this blood-curdling scream, and I sat up and I looked around and I was like, that's odd. And I looked at the clock, which was on my girlfriend's side of the bed towards the bathroom side and the door to come in the bedroom, and it said like 12:36 a.m. Like, that's odd. So I lay back down again on my left side, and my girlfriend gets up, doesn't say anything, goes in the bathroom, doesn't turn the light on, shuts the door, and sits down. I actually hear the toilet cover, toilet seat cover come up, and hearing her like sit down on the seat. And I thought to myself, that's odd, because normally it's a fight to get her to keep the light off. And she didn't say anything when she got up. It was weird. So I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I feel like something's in the room with me. And so my eyes shot open, and I looked over, I'm facing the wall where the bathroom door is. That's lit by the light coming through the Venetian blinds, and standing there is a gray. I didn't know what they were at the time. 2.5, 3 feet tall, gray looking, big head, black-eyed thing. And my girlfriend actually, just fresh out of the Marines, told me about them. She actually was a believer. And it's not like I didn't believe, it's that, because I've seen ghosts and angels and elementals my whole life, I didn't discount it that there was aliens out there. It just had never come into my realm of possibility at all, nothing to really consider. And so when my girlfriend talked about it, I didn't discount it. I thought, cool, all right, they're around, good. She told me a little bit about Roswell and stuff, and I thought it was fascinating. Well, here's one standing in my room. It wasn't fascinating, and it wasn't great because I couldn't move at all. And when I woke up and I opened my eyes and I saw that there was something in the room, the very first thing I did was try to move and then panic and pass out, because I had just come from the war, and I was very, very traumatized. I was really suffering from PTSD, and not being able to move when I wake up with something odd and strange in my room. Not alone, it would have been horrifying enough if it was a person, but to have it to be something that was completely paradigm breaking for me was very tough. I woke up, I passed out numerous times because I couldn't move, and I tried to fight and fight and fight. I had, 3 or 4 weapons right around me within arm's reach, knives and guns, and I couldn't move to get to them. But I kept waking up. And each time I wake up, it was sort of like I could hear something a little bit in the background, because I was also born telepathic. I could hear people's thoughts and was often confused why people said different things than what they were thinking. So I thought I felt something like that. I hadn't been really tapping into that since my early childhood and through high school and so on. But here it was again. And so the next time that I came awake, I just laid there for a moment and I listened. When I did that, I was able to hear this voice, very, very small in the background, say, "Be calm. We are here only to check on you. No harm will come to you." Of course, I panicked and I passed out again. "What do you mean to check on me? What are you talking about?" And I had this sense that this had happened before, because I was laying there, and as I was laying there, there was this, I would liken it to almost like a cool breeze on a hot summer day. Like you're laying out in the beach and your skin is warm and a cool breeze rolls over your skin and you can feel it kind of roll up your body and down again. And I was experiencing that when I was laying there this time awake and not panicking, thank goodness. And I was experiencing that, but then when I realized that feeling was familiar, I panicked and passed out again. And then the next thing I recall is flashes of being wheeled down a brightly lit hallway, of being led into a room with other of those things, those zetas, the grays, but they were tall. They were like 6 feet tall. And flashes of different things they were doing to me in my stomach, and me fighting back this time, and waking up several times during the procedure. And so next thing I knew, all at the same time, I was back in my bed. The door came open, the light turned on, my girlfriend was cursing, and I sat straight up. And I felt so relieved to be able to move. And I looked to the wall where the Zeta was, and I just stood there frozen. And my girlfriend came in, she's like, what? Is there someone here? Is there someone here? What's going on? And I just pointed at the wall in shock. And then I was eventually able to tell her what had happened. Well, the next morning, it's sort of like, let me tell you, when something that paradigm bending happens, the initial default for the psyche and the human psyche is to go back to normality, like to try and forget anything that doesn't fit into the norm. So we talked about it for a few minutes. She calmed down, realizing nothing was there now, and then got a little pissed when she realized that it was a Zeta, like one she had told me about, and that all she'd ever wanted to do was meet one. And they put her to sleep on the toilet. She was pretty upset about that. So we talked about it for a little bit, went to sleep. Woke up the next morning, alarm still went off, normal time. I rolled arrested, I'm not going into work today. I was in a constant fog. I was in real shock still. And so I stayed home and she went to work, and I called a friend of mine. Actually, let me rewind a little bit. What brought validity to this? What has made us feel like, maybe this really did happen last night? Because when we woke up, we got up, we looked at each other, we kind of went about our day. And then we walked outside to the kitchen where our friend was up and about doing her thing. And right before we were getting ready to leave and she was going to go off, she was thinking about moving to the area. So she was there looking for jobs and places to stay. And oh yeah, one more thing before I take off. The weirdest thing happened last night. I heard this woman scream, bloody murder in the courtyard. I got up. I walked around the apartment. I looked outside to make sure everything was okay. But I felt like something wasn't right. And I didn't want to bother you guys, but I came up to the door and I went to knock on the door. And the next thing I knew, I woke up on the couch this morning. It's weird, right? And then me and my girlfriend looked at each other like, oh my God, that really happened last night. It really happened. And so she went to work. The friend went off looking for what she needed. And I stayed in the apartment complex, sort of just staring at the wall. And then I've been a part of women's psychic groups my whole life, even when in my early 20s. I was 24 at the time. This is 1994. And I needed help. I needed answers. And so I called a friend in my group, and they were all much older than me, crones. And they came, and actually one of them, Morgan, came over, and she knocked on the door, and she opened the door, and I was just walking around in a daze, completely out of it, not feeling right at all, not just feeling as if you haven't quite woken up. You're just, I don't know if any one of you have ever been in shock, but it was very much shock-like. And she opened the door and she looked at me, looked me up and down. Sierra, you want to tell me why you're pregnant? I said, Morgan, it's not funny. It's not funny at all. Don't even joke around. You know that I'm a lesbian. You know that I haven't slept with a man. So what are you talking about? I brought you over here because I need to talk to you about something very disturbing that happened last night. And so she said, okay, go ahead. Tell me what happened. And then I told her, and she's like, yep. And then she proceeds to tell me about the Zeta Hybridization Program, how in Roswell they brought aircraft down and they were trying to get technology, so we were capturing these beings and they were torturing them. I was just, oh my God, like, to what end? What is going on here? And they said, she told me eventually there was a deal struck between the United States government and the Zetas, what they call themselves Zeta Reticuli. They come from the Zeta Reticuli system, star system, like some moon or something off. Anyway, for a deal, in exchange for technology that our government gets, they gave people to the Zetas for a hybridization program, or she told me they'd lost the ability to reproduce. So I said that is not okay with me, and I didn't give my permission, and what do we do next? So I proceeded that day to go to the store and get pregnancy tests, and I got 4 or 5 different tests, and they all came up positive. So I was pregnant without having been with a man, and I was very upset about that. So Blake, that's how I first realized that I had been being visited, and probably been being visited my whole life, because of the memory and the feeling of it being so familiar. The women in my group said that I had been expanding my psychic awareness and my abilities with them, and that's the reason why I was able to start waking up in the middle of these procedures, and I was becoming unruly. And so, so that's when I realized I was being visited. Yeah, so when I first realized that I was being used in this hybridization experimental thing, I was angry. I was really upset, and we had a meeting with the women's group. We brought everybody together, and me and Morgan told them what had happened. And then they said, okay, well, everything is free will, and this is a contractual agreement that you have. I was pretty upset about that at first, but ultimately, on a soul level, I did come to understand. I agreed to be a part of these experiments when I first came into this lifetime, but it didn't make it any easier. While it was happening, it did not make it any easier during it, and how it made me feel. And so I was in shock, really. How am I pregnant without ever having had sex with a man? How is that possible? How is it possible as a lesbian? So the tools that we utilize, because when they told me that they understood what was happening and that this was a governmental thing, and then Morgan informed the group that normally women, they don't normally wake up during these procedures, normally don't know what's happening, don't wake up and figure out what's going on, and a lot of times don't realize they're pregnant before the fetus is taken again. And so the decision was made. Well, first they asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to break the soul contract. They said, why? To what end? And I said, I want to keep the child. If I'm pregnant, I want to keep this child. This is my body. My child, and I want to keep it. So we went through the ceremony of breaking soul agreements, and I made a new agreement that I said I wanted to keep the child, and that whatever came with it, including I had no idea what the child was going to look like. Like, I went through these moments when I was pregnant. I was pregnant for 4.5 months. It was really showing, because I'm very tall and thin, and so it was very much showing, and the women were taking care of me. So what we decided to do, and after breaking the agreement, was to keep me moving. I left the apartment complex where my girlfriend and I were staying, and I started staying on the couches of these women. And they would move me without telling me they were going to move me. They would come home or whatever, and then they would take me to this. So a couple weeks here, a couple weeks there. We went to extraordinary lengths to try to keep the baby away from whoever it was that was going to be taking it. And so it worked. It worked for about 4.5 months. And the women were taking care of me. They were all older grown women. They'd all had children. So I was taking prenatal care and different things like that. My relationship with my girlfriend started to take a turn, but I'll get to that in a minute. But we just kept me moving around, kept me going from place to place, kept me from not knowing what was going to be happening, because they said that maybe they could tap into my psychic consciousness. Maybe I had trackers. They had no idea. So it was just this cloak and dagger for about 4.5 months.